Okay. All right, hello everybody. This is Lee Gerstmann, and with me is Charles Traynor, the cool guy. How are you, Charles?
Doing really well, and just go ahead and tell the folks what we're doing.
Kiss Dynasty.
Dynasty, Kiss,
Yeah.
one of my favorite groups of all time.
Yeah.
Kiss, and this is like the real lineup, right? At least for like one song.
I saw them in concert for this album.
You saw the Dynasty tour?
Yeah.
Wow!
And
Fuck yeah, that's cool.
the one thing Ace acknowledged was when I told him about seeing him at Dynasty. So at least he
That's cool.
acknowledged that. So
Yeah,
I got at least a nod from him, whereas other people didn't. So that was cool.
yeah,
And at least
and
he
then
isn't like someone else who a friend of mine said, at least Ace isn't like, get the fuck away from me and get angry and yell. So he said Ace is cool by comparison. And I agree. He didn't seem necessarily tired. He just seemed like he was focused on getting stuff signed. But he didn't necessarily seem annoyed or bored. He just seemed like he was there to sign stuff, period. But anyway, what were you
yeah.
going to say?
I mean, that's awesome. You got to see this tour. I mean, there was the little set with a solo song from each guy, right?
Yeah.
So Ace, what Ace did New York Groove,
I would think so, yeah.
Gene did Radioactive,
I guess so.
Paul said done Move On,
Yeah.
and I believe Peter did Tossin' and
Yes,
Turnin'.
yeah, yeah. The
Yeah,
interesting thing is Peter didn't I didn't hear him do Beth or I didn't see
oh,
him
that's a shame. That's
go.
a shame.
He might have done it, but he stayed on the drum set. I didn't even see him mostly. It's like the drum set covered him, but I could tell by the playing it was him. It
Same way
wasn't
when
his
yeah,
best,
same.
but but
hmm
but 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 it was still him.
Same way when I seen him, all you saw was his face.
I didn't even see
He's
that.
he was hidden behind the drums
Yeah, he
for
was
the most
totally
part.
hidden. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, this Kiss Dynasty, as Paul Stanley would call it, is that was a huge part of the tour was in Australia. Unmasked in particular, which was the next album, which is a misunderstood work of genius. But
Hmm. Huh.
Dynasty, the last album to, in essence, feature the whole lineup, even though it's only on one song here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Mass acted like Peter was still in the band, but he certainly wasn't, and didn't have a song or anything on that. But he has a song here.
Yeah.
Um, it's known as the Disco Album
Hmm. Yeah.
for Kiss, '79. I remember my mom liked this stuff a lot.
Hmm.
But she was into disco.
Hmm.
That makes sense. Um,
Yeah.
so of course, in the Kiss world, it can be considered a little controversial because it's whatever. I'll just give a little spoiler. This is one of my favorite Kiss albums.
Okay.
It's not my favorite, but it's one of my favorites, especially on the studio side. Alive will and always will be my favorite. Nothing will ever beat that. But on the studio side, I vary between this and probably Rock and Roll Over. It might be just what mood I'm in, and then maybe Dress to Kill. But this is definitely up there.
Yeah.
So it should be. That pretty much prefaces where we'll go with this review today, I believe.
Yeah.
So
When I had this album and I had Unmasked, I would continuously because I just sort of graduated from junior high, and the prettiest girls signed my yearbook. So I would keep listening to songs off of Dynasty and Unmasked and keep looking at the posts that they wrote in my yearbook over and over and over and over again. So that was my thing. Anyway,
Right on.
so it works too. If you have a really pretty girl who you really like, who writes in your yearbook, and you can listen to a Kiss song from that time and look at what they write and imagine the music as the soundtrack to what they wrote you, it works. Anyway, okay. Do you want to go first or me?
You can go first.
Okay. I was made for loving you. Okay. This is done well, and I don't mind it. But after a while, the simple melody seems to keep going on and becomes more of a disco song than a rock song, but with the added disadvantage of not being really good disco. I'd much prefer listening to Santa Esmeralda if I want to hear disco. But this does have that false sense of rocking credibility to it that will appeal to 12-year-olds who want to dance and play air guitar. I don't dislike it, but I don't think it has a lot of substance. What do you think?
Tonight, I got the taste of shitty music like bread out of my mouth.
Oh, boy.
Sure, is this Kisco? Of course. Does it make it suck? No. The only issue with it is I believe by the time this came out, disco was almost a finished entity. But better late than never, I suppose. I mean, honestly, this is a song you love or hate, pretty much like disco. And Gene Simmons seems to not like it particularly, so there you go. But me, like the other 12-year-olds, I happen to love it. The guitars are great. Ace's solo is ripping. And they do a rockier version live to this day. Well, maybe not to this day. They're supposedly retired, but you know what I meant. This is the way it's meant to be heard, in my opinion. And also, I think one of Stanley's better vocals on a song as well. A classic for me. All right.
All right. What do you think of 2000 Man?
I'd have to go out on a limb and say this is my favorite covered version of any song, period, by any artist. How they took that rather mundane and boring Rolling Stones song and make it into this is absolutely brilliant. But it is Ace. And when Ace was, this was in his 2-year run where he could actually write decent tunes or rework a Rolling Stones track into a better version than original, like in that era. But matter of fact, I think the Stones album that it came off is rather weak. But I digress. Strong candidate for favorite song on the album for me. It is just absolutely a smoking version of what was a rather weak song as far as the way the Stones did it. This is fabulous.
Okay, I said, this is done well. And I have to give Ace credit for arranging a song that in its original version by the Rolling Stones is a mess. And Mick sings in this whiny, out-of-tune voice. Ace is in tune. And he sounds less whiny and more deep-voiced a female American Idol singer. I could imagine the backing singers, all young kids, doing Jack LaLanne exercise dance moves while the audience listening doesn't know a complex song if they've ever heard it. There is that element of needing to placate the tastes of the young teens like I was, who didn't want to think but just dance. So even though it does work musically and has more substance than the last song, it's like comparing bottled waters. They're both formulaic. Okay. Now for Sure Knows Something. Okay. For a song I never used to like, I like it now. Mostly because I understand its place on the album and how the formulaic hypnotic flow needs to keep on flowing, but in this case, it breaks out of it. and sounds like genuine Kiss during the chorus, and gets heavier, like it could have been on Love Gun. Musically, too, it has more going for it, and the disco dance beat is done to a good purpose, and not sounding as cookie cutter as the last two tracks. The album is showing its better side, so now I'm optimistic. What do you think?
Well, we're back on a slight disco feel here. And to be fair, it's all over the record. This one is a song that I'm sure only because it's Kiss, it didn't do much. Because as far as its charts and that kind of thing, this should have been a pop hit, period. But it was Kiss, so it wouldn't be. And that's kind of sad. It seems also that Paul Stanley played the guitar solo on this, which was pretty tasty.
Yeah.
Well, at least he does in the video, so I can only assume he did. Unplugged, he didn't, so who knows. With the band dynamics at this time, it's hard to tell. I do prefer the studio version to the Unplugged anyway. An excellent pop rock song that doesn't seem to be forced. It seems natural for Paul Stanley here.
Huh. Okay, what do you think of Dirty Livin'?
Our only song penned by Peter Criss, the only one with all four people from the band on it, which means Stan Penridge, who he got hosed again because he got a co-write with Vinnie Poncia, but it meant Stan Penridge wrote it. I've heard some folks say that this is their favorite song on the album, which I wouldn't begrudge that. It's not mine, but it's certainly a damn fine song, and I wish Chris could have somehow kept on this wavelength instead of the dreck on the majority of his solo works, to include the 78 one. Ace's solo is fantastic on it, and this is the only one that Chris drummed on, and he does a pretty good job. And of course, his vocals are fantastic, and I continue to think he probably had the best voice in the band, so not a bad way to go out, as he would be soon from here.
All right. I said this song has a little more going for it, and even though it does have a disco groove, it has a different intent, and I can feel the difference in intent, even though I also could imagine Santa Esmeralda doing a great version of it. Peter's drumming shows he's not trying to do a click track type of crap. And even though I like the demo a bit better, I have to say the rest of the group doesn't screw up the song as much as maybe they'd like to. The album is getting better. Okay, now for Charisma. Okay, the album's getting better. This sounds like Gene knew what he wanted the album to sound like and wrote the song that the other members imitated, not the other way around. The beat sounds less formulaic, disco, and more focal part of the song direction. I would love to hear a really heavy, intense version of this. I think Girls' School could have done it very well, even though little elements of this sound a tiny bit like Gene's grating his teeth trying to make the song fit into Vinnie Poncia's insistence of namby-pamby crap. He ultimately shrugs the producer off and gives a song with attitude and coolness. So far, best song on the album. What do you think?
It is our first Gene song, which he's only got one other one on this record, and this one was co-written with their business manager, Howard Marks.
Yeah.
Which is rather odd.
Yeah.
Oh well. For some reason, this one is damn near my favorite. This is about as autobiographical as Gene could get here. His vocals are rather ominous sounding. I love the bass work, and the wall sound-esque vocals are great in the chorus. Pretty ridiculous, pretty genius. Gene Simmons, ladies and gentlemen. I love this one. Charisma. Yes.
Right on. What do you think of Magic Touch?
Our last Paul Stanley song. And it's yet another good one here. Believe me, as a fan of Unmasked, this is way better than the majority of his output on that album. My only issue with this song is that it gets a bit repetitive and could have been trimmed down slightly. For Stanley's songs on the record, for me, this is the lesser one, but believe me, far from his worst song ever. Read My Body. It's still a pretty cool song, even if it does come across as a bit fillerish here. I do dig it though, but less than his other songs on the album.
Okay, I put, the album's slipping down again. This belongs on Paul Stanley's solo album, next to the songs Move On and Ain't Quite Right, not Kiss's Dynasty. Granted, no disco groove here. It's all true blue Kiss sound, but very tired, and halfway through I was waiting for it to be over. In context with Paul's solo album, it would be better. On here, worst song on the album. Okay. Now for Hard Times. No disco here. Pure Kiss done the right way and a great song. However, it doesn't sound like it belongs on this album. It sounds like it belongs on another album with a better producer. So maybe Ace insisted that Vinnie Poncia sit down and keep quiet, like how Ray Davies acted with Shell Tell Me. It's a great song, but it makes me think that this song and Charisma could have been on another album with Eddie Kramer producing. What do you think?
Well, this one it was always in the grower category for me. I almost feel bad about that. Almost. But it was. It's my least favorite Ace thing on the album. But I would put it on about the same wavelength as Magic Touch, but a slightly better song here. If you compared it to Ace's 78 solo, this wouldn't have made that album. So it makes sense, as I suppose he kept it for a proper Kiss album, because it seemed like he was like, fuck Kiss a little bit. Of course, the guitar solo is excellent. I do think it's a grower, but still one that I consider filler here.
Wow. In fact, listening to what you said, it makes me think the only way that Ace's solo album could have been improved, and it would have been a big improvement.
Well, Kramer, yeah.
Was
Kramer,
take out New York Groove, put in Hard Times, take out Fractured Mirror, put in Save Your Love, and then you got a great album.
I hear a little Fractured Mirror in the song. I mean, with Eddie Kramer, yeah, I agree.
But what I mean is, take out New York Groove. Hard Times is much better.
Well, I wouldn't disagree, and like you nailed it. Like with Eddie Kramer, maybe this song would have been better.
Yeah.
Poncia,
I hear you.
Eddie Kramer is the best Kiss producer, period.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
All right. So anyway, what do you think of X-Ray Eyes?
Our other Gene song, who apparently was already looking for greener pastures at this time or something, because he would usually be a bit more prolific. Sure, this is far from his best work, and is it that much better than Hard Times or Magic Touch? Maybe not, but I ultimately find it more enjoyable than those two songs, even if it isn't the most brilliant thing ever. Poncia's production was really noticeable here, especially in the production of the backing vocals. It isn't brilliant as a song, but I guess it's the way Gene sings it is the way that drives it home for me, as I really do dig X-Ray Eyes.
Okay, I put, it's a good song, but it brings it down a notch. It would have been fantastic on Gene's solo album as a substitute, taking away See You Tonight. It sounds more like a song.
I like that one.
Yeah, I don't. Anyway, it sounds more like a song Gene wanted on his solo album, but there were too many tracks for him to include it, so he gave it a Kiss and they gave it their treatment. I will say, though, Ace's solo, if this is him soloing because it's better than how he usually plays, beats his solo on Strange Ways, which everyone says is great, but this is way better. It's a decent song, not the best on the album, but surely not the worst. Okay, And now for the last song, Save Your Love. Okay. Really good song and deserves to be on the hypothetical other Kiss album with Hard Times and Charisma. But Paul's background vocals sound out of tune, like someone is slowing the turntable a tad with their finger. And before the song is over, the band sounds tired, like this is the last song and they're looking forward to going home. But I do dig it. What do you think?
My favorite song in the album. Strong candidate for my favorite Ace song. It isn't, but it's near the top for me. And I actually love the Paul Stanley backing vocals in the chorus, even if some mock it, like Lee. This song has like a rocking Four Types feel. The Four Tops, the feel in the chorus, like a rocking version of the Four Tops. Ace's lead vocal is particularly strong here, and it never had to grow on me like Hard Times. I mean, shit. Like I said, this is one of my favorite Ace songs, so hell yeah, I love it. And this is such a great Kiss album, and appropriate as it's in essence the last one they did in the 70s with the real lineup. So, man, I was so grateful to do this on a Lee Gerstmann show, especially after Crappy Bread.
Hey, I almost would do anything after a Crappy Bread experience. Okay, thank you so much. And
thank you.
And this can be called slightly stale maple syrup. It's still great though. Okay, take care everybody. Bye bye.